Hi everyone, my name's Alex and I'm a medical student at the University of East Anglia, and today I'm going to go through what laptop or computer you should buy for medical school, and I'm going to go through them at 3 different price points. So we've got expensive, which is going to be sort of £1,000 to £1,500, sort of middle of the range, which is like £700 to £800, and then budget, which is under £500. So let's just kick off with why I feel like I'm in a position to give this sort of advice. So I've used quite a lot of different computers over the years. I've used Windows laptops, touchscreen Windows laptops, iPads, MacBooks, built Windows PCs. So right now I'm using the 2020 12.9 inch iPad Pro as my only computer, and I'm using that with the Magic Keyboard and the pencil. So just for comparison, we're going to break each category down into lectures, tutorials or PBL, placement, self-study sort of in the library or at home, and other stuff. So let's get started with the most expensive category, so the £1,000 to £1,500. And my recommendation for this category is what I use, which is the 12.9 inch iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil. You can get this on the Apple Education Store for about £1,350, I think, £1,350. But if you can, I'd recommend stepping up to the 256 gig model, which will be about £1,450. But you can definitely get away with getting a refurbished model on the refurbished store, so the 2018 model, which is literally exactly the same. And you'll save a good sort of £100, maybe even £200 on there. So the reason I love this so much is because you can use it as a normal laptop, you can use it as your paper, you can use it as a games console, it's an iPad as well obviously, and the trackpad just makes it so much easier to sort of edit text, which really makes it compete with MacBooks. So let's start off with lectures. So in lectures, this is where it's really good. It's probably the best thing you can have in lectures because the keyboard's great, you've got the trackpads to easily navigate around, and you can do things really quickly. The trackpad's got some great gestures on it as well, so you never find yourself getting behind what the lecturer is saying. And the pen or Apple Pencil support means you can just quickly jot something down or annotate something or draw a diagram in the lecture, which can be really useful for sort of understanding and highlighting things that you need to know. So for lectures, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. For tutorial groups or PBL, it's also fantastic for pretty much the same reasons, mostly because of the pen support, because it's really good to sort of jot things down in tutorial groups. So I'm going to give it 10 for that as well. Placement is fantastic as well, because you can write things down that the doctors are saying, or you can just jot little bits and pieces down rather than carry notebooks with you. But it's a little bit big, so it's not that portable. So I'm going to give this 8 out of 10. And for self sort of home study, again, this is really good, but it's not quite as good at multitasking as a full-fledged sort of operating system. So I'm going to give it a 7. It also doesn't have support for plugins like Mendeley for Word. I think there's some plugins you can use, but they're not nearly as good as they are on a full sort of Mac or PC. And other stuff is fantastic. So this is great for watching YouTube or just browsing the web or playing games on. So that's also fantastic. Going to give that a 10 out of 10 for other stuff. The iPad gets a total score of 45 out of 50. In the mid-range group, sort of £700-800, we don't really have a specific winner, because there's loads of different Windows laptops to choose from, but that's really what I'm getting at here. Is this is where Windows laptops are king, and specifically 2-in-1s. So if you're in this sort of price range, there's a few things you need to be looking for. So you need something which is compact, so about 13 inches. You need something with a Intel i5 or AMD Ryzen 5 processor, just to keep up with all the different things you're doing. You need a solid state drive, at least 256 gigs, and at least 8 gigs of RAM, and preferably a 2-in-1 with pen support. So they're what you need to be focusing on. This is my pick of the bunch. So this is an HP Envy. It's got pen support, it ticks all the boxes, and you will probably be able to find this on sale or use a Uniday student discount to get it a lot cheaper. Pen support isn't quite as good as the iPad, it's not as responsive, but it's still really nice to have. So for lectures, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 because it's got a trackpad, which is great for navigating text, but because the pen support isn't quite as good as the iPad, we're going to mark it down 1 there. Tutorials, we'll give it an 8 because this often relies a bit more on the pen support, so yeah, mark down again there because it's not quite as good as an iPad, but it's still really good. The only place it really falls down is on placement, because a 13-inch fairly heavy laptop is probably too big to be carrying around with you on wards or sitting there writing on in a clinic or something, so it's still probably best to stick to pen and paper for that. So I'm only going to give it 4 for that. For home study, this is where it really shines because it's great multitasking and you've got the pen support. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 for that. That is the best thing you can have for studying at home or in the library. For other stuff, I'm going to give it an 8 because it's got a nice big screen for watching telly on, and you might be able to get away with playing some light games and things, and it's obviously going to be great for internet shopping as well. So overall, this has got a score of 40, but remember this will depend on which one you end up choosing, which one falls within budget, so just bear that in mind. So now we move on to the budget options, and really at less than £500, any traditional computer like laptop you buy is going to be trash, especially the Windows ones. The Chromebook ones, they're so limiting, they're only really good for sort of text editing, and the Windows ones, they'll come with a slow hard drive, slow processor, not enough RAM, and every time you open it up you'll end up sitting around for ages waiting for things to load and waiting for the thing to actually boot up, so it's just pointless. So you'd be better off using the computers in the library or in computer rooms at your university than having a computer like this. So I'm going to assume that you have the access to computers at the library or in the computer rooms at your university. So with that in mind, the best computer in this budget category is going to be the 10.2-inch iPad, and specifically the 128GB model, because the 32GB model is a complete waste of time. You'll fill it up in about 3 seconds and you'll regret buying it. So this won't slow you down, it's nice and snappy, and it's got the fantastic functionality of the pen and all of the brilliant apps for medical students that you can get on iOS. So for lectures, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. The main reason it's only a 7 is because it hasn't got a trackpad, so it can be a bit fiddly sort of navigating around text with your finger or with a pencil. So mark down there, but it's really good because you have obviously got that pen. For tutorials, it gets an 8. This is because, again, it relies on the pen a little bit more and it's got fantastic pen functionality. Now placements is where this really shines. This gets a 10 out of 10 for placements. It beats the other iPad because it's a lot smaller and sort of more compact and lighter, so it's easier to carry around on wards or in clinics. It's just a lot easier to use. So the only place this iPad falls down significantly is when you're studying sort of by yourself or in the library. That's simply because it's got quite a small screen and the multitasking isn't brilliant, and again it's got no trackpad, so it's definitely doable, and I've done it quite a lot with my old iPad. I just use that for a bit, but it's something to bear in mind. Now you can always buy an external monitor if you want to, or just get sort of a laptop stand just to raise it up a little bit and make it a little bit more ergonomic. And also iOS does support mice and trackpads now, so if you're just using it in your room or at home or something, then that's definitely something to consider. So for other things, I'm going to mark this down a little bit again here as well, because although it's really good for sort of watching videos and things, it is a bit smaller, it's not quite as powerful, so you won't be able to play many games and stuff on it. So you might be thinking this is a little bit over budget. Well, that's true, but you can look around on the Apple refurbished store and often get some great bargains on there, or use your student discount, or rather than getting the keyboard from Apple directly, you can go on Amazon and get a third-party keyboard which will do the job just fine. So you just get the iPad, the 128GB iPad and the pencil, and then buy the keyboard from Amazon or something if you're a little bit tight for cash. So overall, the 10.2-inch iPad scores 36 out of 50. So you might have expected a MacBook to be on the list somewhere, specifically like the MacBook Air, but I've had a MacBook Pro before. In fact, I sold my MacBook Pro not so long ago and replaced it with my iPad. And that's because it just doesn't have the same level of versatility as a MacBook does. So a MacBook is very, very good for multitasking text editing, browsing the web, that sort of thing. But it doesn't have the pen support, it's not as versatile, and it doesn't have support for a lot of the apps on iOS, which I think are just brilliant and really, really good for being a medical student. And I always find it a lot more convenient just to take my iPad out of my bag and start using it, rather than get a MacBook out, which is always a little bit sort of more bulky and there's a little bit more faff associated with it. So although the 12.9-inch iPad is just as expensive, if not more expensive in some cases, than a MacBook, it does all the things which a MacBook would do as a student and a lot more. So I don't really see the point in getting one unless you've got some very specific needs. So you might have noticed there's quite a big price gap between the mid-range and the expensive choices in this, but you can sort of change that to suit you. So you can always, if you've got a little bit more cash, you can always spend a bit more on a Windows 2-in-1 and get something that's a bit lighter, a bit faster, some more storage. Or you could shop around on the used market for an iPad and save a little bit of cash there. I'll have a video coming up soon about why I think the iPad Pro is better than a MacBook for a student, specifically coming from a medical student's point of view. And if you're interested in seeing that, give this video a like. But thanks for watching. If you found this useful, let me know why in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.